Have you ever felt like you're walking on eggshells in your own home? You love your child more than anything, but sometimes it feels like the smallest no or a gentle correction triggers a storm you didn't see coming. Maybe you tell them to be careful with a glass, or you explain why they can't have another cookie, and suddenly they're in tears. Or worse, they explode in anger. In those moments, it's easy to feel like you're failing. You might think, why are they so sensitive? Or even worry, are they trying to manipulate me with these tears? But what if I told you that behind that crying, and even behind that nervous laugh some kids have when they're in trouble, there is a biological process happening that has nothing to do with defiance? Today, we're going to look inside the mind of the big reactor. We're going to talk about why some children are wired to feel the world more deeply, and why your correction feels to them like a personal attack on their very soul. The Orchid Child. Experts estimate that about 15 to 20% of children are born with what we call a highly sensitive temperament. These are the kids often referred to as orchids or hothouse flowers. Unlike dandelions, who can grow anywhere, orchids are incredibly reactive to their environment. They notice the subtle change in your tone of voice before you've even finished your sentence. Think about your child's brain as a specialized processor. While other kids might notice the main events of a day, a highly sensitive child is absorbing everything: the scratchy tag on their shirt, the humming of the refrigerator, and most importantly, your emotional state. Because they take in so much information, their internal balloon fills up much faster than others. By the time you say no to a toy at 5 p.m., their balloon is already stretched to its limit. That no isn't just a refusal, it's the needle that pops the balloon. For these children, emotions don't have a middle ground. They are either ecstatic or enraged. They don't have a quietly disappointed setting. This intensity is a part of their neurobiology. It's not something they choose, and it's certainly not something they do to make your life difficult. Why correction feels like a personal indictment. One of the most heartbreaking moments for a parent is when you try to guide your child, to teach them something, and they react with shame. You might say, "Honey, please don't pull the dog's tail," and they run away, cover their ears, or melt into a puddle of tears. To a highly sensitive child, a benign correction feels like a personal indictment. Their brain doesn't hear "that action was wrong," it hears "you are wrong, you are a failure." This triggers a massive flood of cortisol, the stress hormone, in their brain. When this happens, their logical brain shuts down. They enter a state of fight, flight, or freeze. The crying you see is often a release valve for that overwhelming shame. And if your child is one of those kids who laughs when you scold them, please know they aren't mocking you. That laughter is an involuntary nervous laugh. It's their body's desperate attempt to lower the tension and break the stress. It's a sign they are terrified, not that they don't care. The mirror effect. Why your calm or your stress is literally contagious. Now that you understand what's happening inside your child's brain when you correct them, there's something you need to know about what's happening inside yours. Scientists have discovered something fascinating. Human beings have mirror neurons. Essentially, our brains are designed to sync up with the emotional state of the person in front of us. It's why you yawn when someone else yawns. It's why you start laughing when someone nearby is genuinely cracking up, even if you didn't hear the joke. Now imagine what this means for a highly sensitive child. When your child enters storm mode and you start to feel that pressure building in your chest, that inner voice whispering, "Why does it always have to be like this?" Your body starts releasing cortisol too, and your child, with that finely tuned emotional processor they were born with, picks up on it before you've even noticed it yourself. They see it in your clenched jaw. They hear it in the subtle shift in your tone. They feel it in the air. And then something happens that psychologists call mutual emotional escalation. Their stress feeds yours, and yours feeds theirs. It becomes a loop that keeps feeding itself. This is why when experts say, stay calm, it's not vague advice from a parenting magazine. It's literally science. Your nervous system has the power to co-regulate your child's. When you ground yourself, when you breathe slowly, when you lower your voice instead of raising it, you are lending them your calm. Their brain borrows your regulation because they don't yet have their own. How do you pull that off in the hardest moment? With one silent question you can ask yourself. Do I want to be right, or do I want this to get better? Because sometimes releasing your grip on the situation is exactly what gives both of you back a sense of control. Have you noticed that your child can be very rigid? Maybe they insist on the blue bowl, or they have a meltdown if the routine changes by 5 minutes. This need for control is a coping mechanism. When the world feels too loud and too intense on the inside, children tried to control everything on the outside to feel safe. When you say no, you are taking away that tiny bit of control they've managed to grab onto. To them, it feels like the floor is dropping out from under them. They aren't trying to be bossy, they are trying to stop themselves from feeling overwhelmed. So how do we parent these beautiful, intense souls without breaking their spirit, or our own? The secret lies in one phrase: connect before you correct. When your child is in the red zone, they cannot hear your logic. Their brain is flooded. This is not the time to explain why they can't have the cookie. This is the time to be their rock. Try to stay calm yourself. If you get revved up, it only feeds their distress. Acknowledge the feeling first. You could say, I see you're really frustrated that we have to stop playing. It's hard to say goodbye to the toys. Validation doesn't mean you're giving in to the demand. It means you are acknowledging their reality. Once they feel seen and the storm has passed, then you can talk about the rules. Wait until they're calm. This is what experts call reality checking. Ask for their permission to share your ideas. This gives them back a sense of control and makes them much more open to your guidance. The learning window, when your child can actually hear you. There's something parents of highly sensitive children tend to learn, usually through plenty of failed attempts, and it's this: when you correct your child matters just as much as what you say. Think of your child's brain like a phone trying to get a signal. When they're in the middle of an emotional storm, that phone is in airplane mode. It's not that they don't want to receive your message, it's that they genuinely can't. The signal isn't getting through. The window of time when the brain reconnects is what specialists call the learning window, and opening it requires two things. The storm has to have passed, and your child has to feel safe, not judged. How do you know the window is open? They start making eye contact again. Their body softens. It might even come looking for a hug. That's your signal. And when that moment comes, the conversation doesn't need to be a lecture. It can be as simple as sitting down at their level and saying, "Hey, can I sit with you for a second? I want to understand what you were feeling." You listen first, then, gently, you share what you need from them. Something almost magical happens when a child feels heard before they're corrected. They start to hear you, not because you've backed down on the rules, but because you've shown them that their big emotions don't make them a problem to solve, they make them a person worth showing up for. Children who learn to recognize their own emotions in a safe environment develop what psychologists call emotional intelligence, and the research is clear. That skill stays with them for life, in their relationships, in their work, in the way they'll someday raise their own children. So the next time you need to correct your little orchid, remember, it's not about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about creating the conditions that make that moment possible. Raising a highly sensitive child is an exhausting journey, but it is also a profound gift. These children are often the most empathetic, creative, and insightful people you will ever meet. They aren't bad or manipulative, they're just deeply tuned in to a world that can sometimes feel like it's too much. The next time your child ends up in tears after you've corrected them, take a deep breath. See the orchid in front of you. They don't need a harsher lesson, they need a safe place to land. Because when they know that your love is bigger than their big emotions, they can finally start to find their own breaks. Thank you for being here with us. You're doing a great job on a very difficult path. If this resonated with you, share your story in the comments. We're all learning together.